World War One was called the Great War and the war to end all wars. It wasn't known as World War One until there was a World War Two a few years later. And at the time, nobody figured that there would be a sequel. A chain of events that began smack dab in the middle of Europe caused the world to experience a war like never before. World War I began with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife. They were from Austria-Hungary. He was killed on June 28, 1914. It wasn't until 5 years later that the world would experience peace once again. The fighting in World War I ended November 18th, followed by the official conference, peace treaty conference, at Versailles, France in 1919. Germany signed the Treaty of Versailles and finally accepted full responsibility and officially ended the First World War. Now, there are many causes of the war, very complicated. They include militarism, nationalism, imperialism, and the alliance system. We're going to talk about each one of those separately on their own slide. One of the causes for the war simply involved power, military power. Much like today's arms races, there was a competition to be the greatest in military might. Testosterone kicked in. There was a push for everybody to have the best and the most powerful military. Britain had always had a great navy. They're an island country, for heaven's sake. Germany wanted to challenge that. They wanted a great navy. Germany and France challenged each other, wanting the largest army. This places huge emphasis on military power. Nationalism was still another cause for World War I. On the surface, it's a very positive characteristic. Nationalism includes being devoted to the interest of one's country, as well as increased pride and patriotism. The problem is that nationalism at the expense of cooperation can create serious conflicts. It's a warped sense of pride. Nationalism can go too far when countries are less likely to respect other nations and to always believe that they are right. It also gave certain groups the idea of forming independent nations and led European nations to compete for the largest army and navy. Now, the third cause of the war involved imperialism. Some of the European nations controlled smaller countries in Africa and Asia, which made other European countries jealous. They wanted their own overseas supply of raw materials and cheap labor. France and England had large colonial empires. They'd had it for a long time. And Germany and Italy desired those colonial empires. The turn of the century, 1900, has been referred to as the age of imperialism. Now, the final cause is the alliance system. It was ironic that it was designed to keep Europe at peace. In the summer of 1914, there were two major alliances. The nations of Europe had been making alliances for over 20 years. One argument between two non-allied nations led all the world to a fight. One of the two alliances was made up of three countries. The Triple Alliance, was between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. These three nations joined together to be stronger collectively and to compete with the other alliance, thought to be stronger in most areas. Now, if you look very carefully, this is German. This is actually Austrian, Austria-Hungary, and this little guy is Italy. So you can tell by this comic, the belief is that Italy is the weak link. weak link. They're the short ones. Now, the other alliance was also made up of 3 countries. The Triple Entente included France, Russia, and Great Britain. The alliance, especially France and Great Britain, had a history of very successful economic, political, and military endeavors. Their colonial empires were stronger too and very well established. Once again, this is another political cartoon. If you look very carefully, you can tell that it's a German cartoon. Deutscher is German, basically. And in the pot, you can guess France, Russia, and Great Britain. So all of the elements of the perfect storm came together in the summer of 1914. The assassination of the future leader of Austria-Hungary sparked a chain reaction, bringing the 2 major alliances into war. The war began on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, Bosnia, with the death of Franz Ferdinand. He was from Austria-Hungary and was assassinated by a Serbian. Austria-Hungary immediately declared war on July 28th, declared war on Serbia for the killing, which brings in the alliances. Russia on July 31st announced that it was prepared to back Serbia, and on August 1st, Germany then declared war on Russia.
The 28th of June 1914, Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. A bomb is thrown at a car. It misses the occupants, the heir to the Austrian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife. The royal couple continued their official visit. A few hours later, the car is stopped again. This time a pistol is fired. The Austrian Crown Prince and Princess Sophie are murdered. The assassin is reported to be a member of a terrorist organization backed by the government of neighboring Serbia. Austria mourns and determines to punish the Serbs. Though few realize it, the countdown to war has begun.
The storm built as Germany declared war on France on August 3rd and on neutral Belgium on August 4th, as the Germans invaded Belgium en route to attack the French. On that same day, because Great Britain had pledged to defend Belgium, they declared war on Germany. On August 6th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Russia. The storm was full-blown when eventually the conflict involved 32 countries. 28 of those countries supported the Allies, although some of the supporters did not actually engage in battles. The leaders. Those engulfed in the war included kings and presidents. The leaders of the major countries involved in World War I included royalty from Russia, Germany, and Austria-Hungary. Great Britain and France, on the other hand, both democracies had elected officials. The following is the list of the main leaders of World War I. David Lloyd George of Great Britain, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, Georges Clemenceau of France, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, and Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, would also become involved.